In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use the grid transfer method to draw an image from a photograph. To do this, you will need a gridded paper, which I showed you how to make in the last video, and you will need your image with a grid drawn on it. You'll notice that the grid on my image lines up with the grid on my paper. So my paper, I have a grid that's 3 across by 4 down, and on my image, I have a grid that is 3 across and 4 down. Your grid on your image should always match the grid on your paper. If they don't match, your transfer will not work correctly. To transfer an image, all you need to do is pick a square to start with. I'm going to start in the upper left, but you may start anywhere you'd like. And the first thing you need to do is notice where the lines in your image intersect with the lines of the grid. So I'm seeing 2 intersections here, I'm seeing 1 intersection here, and I'm seeing a few here. Now I'm circling on my image because it's printed, but if your image exists only on a screen, then you won't be able to do that and you will just need to eyeball it. Then I take the intersections that are on my grid of my image and I start to approximate where the intersection falls on my paper. So I would say this intersection is about halfway across this grid. So I'm going to put a line showing that that is where it intersects. Then I'm going to go to my next intersection, and I would say that this it's not too far down, it's still fairly close to the top, and so I'm just going to make a guess that that top of the can is right here. And I can see there's a line that is pretty directly underneath it. And I'm going to go up from the bottom. I can see I have some lines here. They're fairly close to this bottom line of the grid. So I'm just going to eyeball in about where I think that is. I'm going to move up around here and just keep placing in my lines. Alright, so that's good enough for now. Next, I need to look inside this square of the grid because I need to know where things like this curve end. So if I just kind of draw a line lightly up and down and over, and say that it's about almost halfway down vertically, and it's a little less than halfway across. So if it's a little less than halfway across, and it's just about midway, that puts a point about here. So I'm just going to lightly draw in this curve. And I know that this curve connects to my top line. So I'm going to just sketch it in. Notice I'm being very careful and slow with my lines. I'm not just doing one line as a straight go. I'm sketching, doing small little lines so that my eye can follow the curve as I draw. Then I can do the same thing down. I know that this curve is going to connect to this line right here. So I'm going to follow that curve, small light lines, until it connects. And then I can just straighten it out a little bit. And I can see that I have another line in here that curves along the inside. It follows this curve the whole way. So I can start drawing that in. And maybe I'll do this vertical line next. Okay. Maybe I'll choose to follow this light line next. So again, I want to eyeball about where it's going to end. So I'm just going to take a guess. It's not too far down from this rim. Maybe here. And I'm going to sketch, carefully watching the curve on the image. Remember my motto, draw light till you get it right. You can always erase light lines, but it is hard to erase dark ones. Then I have this curve in here. Now this curve is really interesting because it's going to be mostly filled in with black. So I know that it's going to need a little shape, and I'm just going to guess it goes something like that. There's a tiny itty bitty shape right here. Okay. Next, I need to deal with these lines within this curve. So I already have a line that I know it fits within. I'll start with this curve here. I know it's going to end about here, and it follows this same curve, so I can draw it in. I'm not looking for perfect here, I'm just looking for good enough. Something like that. And I know it has this squiggle here, and it has this light shape here. There's another curve underneath. It looks like this. And I'm starting to get a little confused now. There's a lot of lines. So I'm going to very lightly shade it so I can kind of keep track of what's what, just so I can keep things a little bit straight in my head. I've got a couple more lines now, and I noticed that this line is much further in than the others. I'd say it ends about right there. So I'm going to draw this curve, and I can see that it intersects with this. So I'm continuing to draw these curves. You can see that there's a couple of shapes here, and I'm almost done. Alright, I finished this whole square. Then I move on to the next one. So I'm going to adjust my view. I already know where a lot of these lines intersect because I've already drawn them. So I'm going to look at the intersections on the next vertical line. I can see that these two intersections are pretty directly across. I'm just going to put some lines there. And these lines are also pretty directly across. Alright, looks good. Luckily, this can is pretty symmetrical, so a lot of these are just going to be out in the same place. Then, again, I'm going to follow my lines. Just pay attention to how they curve. So I can see that this line here at the bottom dips down a little bit before coming back up. Alright, so that line continues across. This line continues across. This side, this whole square is pretty lucky in that most of it is just going to continue. And all I'll need to do is put in those little shapes that I see. And I might need to make some adjustments, like go back in with an eraser, change anything that needs to be changed. I'll start to add in these shapes here. That on this edge, this. It slowly gets a little black to it. But I finished that whole square for now. I'm going to go back later and polish it up, do some more. In my next square, I need to find out where my intersections happen. So I'd say this is about halfway across. I know that rim is going to be a little bit wider. I know it's going to stop at about the same place. It's going to stop right around here. And I know that edge is going to connect. I'm just going to watch this curve here to get it to look the same. Right. Continue it up. And keep these lines going. Alright, and I just continue working through each square by square. So if I were to continue, I keep this line going down. Now I'm looking at the C. I'm just kind of figuring things out exactly where it should all fit. Remember, when you work on these words, that you're drawing them. You're not writing Campbell's, you're drawing Campbell's. You're drawing what you see. Alright, so you're drawing how far down the C goes. You're mimicking the curve. And already I can tell I can't fit the A in there. So that means that I'm going to need to erase that C, and I'm going to need to try again. So I'm going to erase that out. I think it needs to be a bit closer to the edge here. So, to get that going. And then cap A. Just go a little bit below the C because the text is kind of on a curve since the can is a cylinder. You can see me slowly working my way across all of these details. Remember, especially with things like letters, you need to make sure that you're seeing how far across they fall on the can to make sure your spacing is correct. So keep going. Draw that entire can from top to bottom, side to side. When you are done, erase out your grid lines, and then with your value pencils, you should shade in the values you see on the can, going from 1 to a 10 on your value scale.